Hello, everybody, and welcome to another podcast of the Sensory Approach to Manual Therapy. Today, my guest is Rachel Richards, and Rachel was a former student of mine at a class I taught in New York, and she attended my How Massage Therapy Works class, now known as Neuroscience of Massage. And I think she's the only student I've ever had who's actually looked at all the research in my course, which she actively told me that she was doing. And I think is fantastic because I recommend it to everybody. And so I'm really happy about that. I want to talk about that. But Rachel, I didn't know this when she was a student, but she's also an author. And she has a very popular YouTube page where she teaches people how to do self massage at home. And that is probably the thing I want to talk the most about because that to me is a unique way to do massage therapy. So welcome, Rachel.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here. It's good to talk to you.
So before we get to the YouTube page, I want to talk about the transition because I read your book, which, to put it mildly, is intense. A really great book, and I'm actually blanking on the name at the moment because it's been a month and I put it down.
Hungry for life.
There you go, Hungry for Life. I see it in my mind and I'm blanking on the name. Hungry for Life, and I'll put a link to it in my podcasts when we go, so you can talk about it there and promote it because you also have another book coming out, correct?
I wrote another book. It's actually a psychological suspense novel, which I never considered myself a novelist, but there you go. And I don't know, just a few weeks ago started writing a sequel, just out of nowhere. I don't consider myself necessarily a writer writing all the time. I get the urge once in a while, and then I do it, and it tends to come out pretty well. So I'm happy so far.
Now, your first book that you wrote, Hungry for Life, that is more of an autobiography. That's a
Yeah.
your story told from your point of view,
Yep.
and it's quite intense. It's a beautiful read. I highly recommend it for everybody, especially if people don't understand much about eating disorders. I understood a little, but this was eye-opening to say the least. My wife is about to read it, and she's excited for that as well, especially since I have two teenage daughters. So it was very eye-opening as well in regards to making sure I'm aware of what's going on. But what interested me the most, and I don't want to give away too much in the book, but you do mention that you eventually transition into massage therapy, which is what you do now. But it's almost like this afterthought footnote at the end of the book.
Mhm.
You know, the majority of the book is not about that experience, but it's the only context in which I had met you. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. You were in performing arts. You were very talented. You were a successful performing artist. You traveled the nation. You could have gone places essentially. And some point you transition into massage therapy, but it becomes this footnote in the book. What is it that inspired you? Was it from having received touch? Because you don't talk about that in the book. Having received touch while being injured as a performing artist? Was it simply something that, oh, I just, take it randomly out of a hat? What brought you to the idea of massage therapy?
I wish I could say that because it would be so easy, right? And actually, at the time that I wrote the book, I don't think I really knew. It was a very long time ago now. It's been maybe it's been over a decade since I wrote the book. And as time goes by, in retrospect, it becomes clearer and clearer to me what drew me to massage therapy. At the time, I knew that I didn't want to keep going out of town because I met somebody who is now my husband and who I wanted to be with. And I hated the in between the jobs. It was just brain like stuff I just didn't want to do. And it was adding up to a lot of my life. And I wanted to do something more meaningful. Wasn't loving the audition process as much as I used to either, and begging for work. It's a unique industry. So I just looked at everything else and well, what else could I possibly want to do? Because of course I put all my eggs in the theater basket. And health sciences kept coming up over and over as just an interest. And I was like, oh, this massage therapy thing sounds cool. Maybe I'll try it. That was it at the moment. Like, oh, this sounds neat. Oh, I get to learn anatomy. What could go wrong?
Almost offhandedly.
Right.
So then what
It
made you fall
really,
in love with it?
it really, it actually that happened over time as well. But I was really interested in the science of it, and I didn't realize the human connection part of it, I think, until much later. So being so sick with anorexia, as my book explains, it's very isolating and it is complete touch deprivation. I mean, to the point where even when you are touched or hugged, you completely disconnected from your body. You don't receive it, and it's not a normal, healthy way to live. And it sort of spirals into to more and more isolation. And
You talk about that briefly in the book when
yeah,
you're with your first boyfriend. You talk about that
mm,
sensation of touch being so foreign,
mhm,
and it was almost interesting reading that section of the book and then knowing where you end up as a massage therapist. In my head, I was like,
yeah,
this is so far apart,
it's a
and
180.
that's so interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and part of that, and part of the anorexia was I don't deserve this. It was very self-punishing. Anything that felt good felt shameful. Um, and I wish I could say why that developed. There was a lot of bullying when I was a child. There was a lot of a misinterpretation, a lot of, my parents did a wonderful job, but some of what they did clashed with what I understood, and it all snowballed into I don't deserve to feel good. Um, so I would run away from it. Self-punishment. It made me feel better to abuse myself, basically. Like it was justifying something. So
Honestly, if you were able to trace why you had what you had,
yeah.
you would probably be one of the only people on the planet who could do that,
Who
because I
could?
think psychologists spend millions of dollars in research and authors and books
Yeah.
trying to do that exact same thing. It's the nature nurture concept, and it's the context of both of them mixed in together, and everything about that, and it becomes so complex
Hmm.
that it's like, what led to it? Well, any number of things and everything at the same time.
And everything, and then different for everybody. So you can't even get like a pile up similar data
Exactly.
necessarily. So it's really, really complicated. So
And a good example of that is, in you talk about when the first time you were in the clinic in New York and the lady was hiding grapes or raisins in her gown.
yes.
Like, it's different for everybody. You were in there and you were like, I'm getting out of here
Hmm.
as soon as possible. And other people are still trying to cheat the system,
Yes.
hoping to get out, but also hoping to still cheat the system. And so again, it's different for everyone, like you said.
Yeah.
And its reason for being there, you say, is shameful and self-abuse, and other people may not see it the same way.
Hmm. Hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's got multiple reasons and different reasons, absolutely. And everyone's recovery journey is completely different. I mean, some people find religion, and that was not my path at all. But what I think ended up happening, as I recovered, as the weight came on, as I met somebody who saw the good parts of me and helped me see good parts of myself, and I slowly kind of came out of that shell. I mean, initially a hand on my shoulder or a squeeze, like when I could feel it again, oh my God, it just like I almost cried from the relief of this. I'm almost going to cry now from this connection. And I, for some reason, did not put it together with, gee, therapy sounds kind of cool, you know? And
And that's interesting too, because in massage, as the therapist, you are receiving touch because your hands are contacting another human. So we are touching each other, but it is very much, the intent is very much unidirectional. We
yes,
are touching them. You're still not on the receiving end of touch unless you're in school and you're receiving tons of massage or you go get frequent care. And so that's an interesting way too, because then you're involved in touch, but you're still in control of the version of touch.
exactly. It's kind of safer, isn't it? Like it's flirting with touch, right? But I'm still the giver.
I think you might have just found the title for this
The
podcast.
flirting with touch.
Flirting with touch with
Yeah.
Rachel Richards. Like, that is a good, yeah, that, what a great way of describing massage therapy. I'm flirting. I like that.
Awesome.
So when you first met your husband and you were receiving that beneficial touch, and for the first time you're experiencing the sensation and you're welcoming of it,
Mhm.
and did that happen to overlap with massage school, or was it more you had met him, you went to massage school after, or was it, and did the two coincide very well?
I was acting for a while after I met him while we were dating. I would be gone for months at a time doing a show in another state, or um, and I think what ended up pushing me was actually just logistics. We wanted to move in together. I knew I eventually wanted to start a family, and that lifestyle was just not working for me. So I was kind of forced. And it was really, I mean, I went through withdrawal. I really, it's a little bit like a drug, the acting business, not the business, but for me, it was the work itself, working with a team of creative artists, putting on something awesome. I can't say I minded the applause and attention, which I think actually a lot of that is almost plays into some of the anorexia, that need for validation, the pat on the back, you're doing okay. I also got to put on different personas, I didn't have to be myself. I got to hide behind the safety of a character that was written for me that I could feel. And so I knew like, oh, this is a character that's accepted in their own way and is normal almost, like, and can integrate with the world. I didn't think I had that ability in myself. So I got to play being a person,
And it's
basically.
interesting too, because like being on stage and public speaking, people ask me why, like, I find public speaking, it's an easier thing for me. I know some people have a hard time with it. A lot of my fellow educators, we talk about this quite frequently, and they say it's still one of the things that makes them nervous. And um, I don't get nervous about public speaking, be it arrogance, be it ego, be it ease, be it that I used to do theater as well. So standing up to, but there is a chemical component too.
Oh
You're
yeah.
standing up there, you're speaking, there's a dopamine rush, there's an adrenaline rush. So there's a chemical sense of satisfaction because those chemicals make us feel strong and they make us feel good. And that can be ultimately quite satisfying as well. So it's not too surprising that like you had a withdrawal and you missed it and that there was this sense of what am I going to next? Because there is that sense of wow, this was really a big rush, a big
Yeah.
thing. My daughter just did her first big play ever,
Oh,
and she signed up for a musical for next year. She was 10 when she started it. She's 11 now. They go 3 hours a week from September through May, and then they put on five productions at the end of the year. And I'm like, man, at 10 years old, 11, that's a big deal. And
that's
like
an
she
intense
was in
schedule.
tears and she was breaking down. And I'm like, yeah, this was like you created a tight community for that long. And now to just suddenly be done with and not see them again is pretty
Yes.
intense.
Yes, and if you're trying to do it as a living, to be done and starting from square one, like yes, you have
And
another
then to
job
hop
on
to
your
new people
resume,
really
but
quick. Yeah.
it doesn't do a lot to get you the next job, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the really tough part of it. So I think it was more a logistics thing. And it's kind of funny what you say about public speaking because people were like, oh, you should go ahead and do YouTube videos. You'd be great because you're such an actor. And I'm thinking, well, but I'm not acting. I'm being myself. That sounds so much more nerve-wracking.
Got to act like yourself.
Right, gotta act like myself. Exactly, which is, yeah, it's well, what part of myself do I want to show? How much of myself do I want to show? And then it's
Well,
interesting because over the years, and you become more vulnerable, especially with something like what I'm teaching, you end up showing a lot of yourself, and that's, that's part of that connection. And I think what was so beautiful about getting the feedback on the channel and even just being a massage therapist and seeing clients is the I'm not alone. Oh my God, other people feel like this too. With anorexia, it's so held inside. You don't share this stuff, but you don't even know you have words for what you're feeling. And then you see
mm-mm.
other people going through the same thing, the self-punishment. And really, this is very influenced by our society, the I'll sleep when I'm dead kind of thing, the push yourself, you have to be productive every moment of your life, um, pain, anxiety, who's got time for it, and who wants to even admit it because it's a weakness or something like that.
I
So
I
it's,
I did a series of podcasts on burnout a couple of years
yeah,
ago
very
because I
good.
had experienced burnout, and I think people often forget that they think recovery, rest and regeneration and recovery are doing nothing. And if mentally they can just make a tiny shift from I'm doing nothing to the thing I'm doing is recovering.
Hmm.
So I'm doing something, but the something I'm doing is nothing
Hmm. Hmm.
for rest, recovery, and regeneration. I
Hmm.
think mentally, because athletes do this, athletes get really good at this. They're on, they're on, they're on, they're off, and then they have to sit, they have to rest, they have to recover so they can be on again. Now that's their only job, unless they have children and families and stuff like that. Whereas people who have 9 to 5 jobs and stuff like that, and then they also want to be in shape, and then they also want to eat well, and they also want to socialize. they don't necessarily, their time constraints are harder, but they often forget that the activity of resting is also doing something, and that something they're doing is self-care.
Hmm.
So
And that is
when you
valuable.
exactly,
That's the
yeah,
thing I
very
try to teach
valuable.
is this is valuable. This is an investment in your life, basically. I mean, if you make it a regular practice, your life gets better, your productivity gets better. So all the things that you actually want to be when you are productive, it's going to come from this moment that you're taking for yourself. Because so many people say, I can't meditate, it's a waste of time. But if you can flip to see it as, no, this is a valuable moment that I am taking for myself, and this is going to make a difference, then it's really flipped in the brain to something. That's when you're really doing something. Yeah.
So is that so? Let's transition then to your YouTube channel because this sounds like a perfect segue. Is that where you find you connect with your listeners and your followers on YouTube? Because I think you have over 100,000 subscribers. Your videos are quite popular. But you've been doing this for how many years now on
And
YouTube?
10, I just had
10 years.
my 10th year anniversary.
I watched the bloopers of them. I thought it was very funny. The sirens and all that kind of
Oh,
stuff
New York
going out.
City.
And,
Yeah.
and so when is that really where you find that they connect with? Because like if I do a video of how to treat, neck tension or tension headaches and stuff like that, sure, it might get, if you have a big following, it might get a lot of people. But is the connection that you're creating with your listeners self-care and care, focus on self-embodiment? Or is it more just, okay, here's the technique, here's what you do for plantar fasciitis, kind of thing like that? What's the intent you have behind the page that makes people, I mean, I read some of the comments, people are quite passionate about what you give them.
Yeah. Yeah. So it started as the latter. Here's your technique for plantar fasciitis. You're welcome, right? And people started responding, wow, this really helped. But over time, it became so much more than that. And I think that that really came from my first video to go viral was what I thought a stupid little 2-minute video that would get like nothing. It's tracing your fingers and breathing. Inhale up, exhale down. So you have the tactile component. It's something that was recommended for my child who is neurodiverse. Like her school said over break, this is a great thing to do. And I'm like, you know what? That seems kind of nice for everybody. I'll do it. I watched the video after. It's literally 2 minutes. I said, this is the dumbest thing, but I'll publish it. It's got over 1 million views. I think it's almost at 2 million, and the most comments and people. It's just how it's changed people, and it was incredible. And so that really spoke to me. So this wasn't, plantar fasciitis or frozen shoulder. This was anxiety. I mean, this is something that gnaws away at you, but also goes along with those chronic pain conditions and all intertwined together. So I realized that it was speaking to people on a much deeper level, and that came to me through the comments that I would receive. And the other part that just became such a mystery to me is some of those comments. I mean, like I did this frozen shoulder thing once. I'm cured. Look, I can move my shoulder. What? Are you kidding? And it's not like it was one, like a lot. Like I've had migraines for 20 years. Nothing's ever helped. And this works better than medication. And I can't believe I'm pain free in the middle. I had put it on as like, this is great to do in between migraines to see if you can decrease the severity and the frequency. People were doing it during migraine saying, oh my God, what is at play here? Because it's not rubbing your temples or, doing that quote unquote myofascial release, which I need to use until we come up with a better term for it, a more accurate term for it. I kind of feel stuck with that term. But the
Uh, the
techniques,
joy
again,
of speaking to one of my students
right,
who's
right.
screwed with our vernacular and our current manual therapy professions.
Exactly. Oh, well, and I went down well, I'm still in it, a Paul Ingram rabbit hole that I will never get out of. I'm just, yeah, I am lost
Paul listens to this
sight
podcast every
forever.
now and then, so I'll let him, I'll tell him that you're saying hi.
Yeah. Oh, I think he's phenomenal. But has destroyed me. So in the best way possible. Um,
Yeah.
so Yeah, so it's what is at play here because it's not a technique, you know. So there's something. I mean, it's just like what you say with massage and chronic pain. Like there's context, you know. There's a lot of there's a human relationship. There's a situation, and I think and it's interesting because I'm not with people in person, but that you can have that connection with a stranger online is really interesting. You know, you see a friendly face, you see somebody who gets it, and they guide you through this. And I think that's a big part of it, a big part of the I'm not alone feeling. They read the other comments. Oh my gosh, you know, look at all these people who had the same thing. And that's the first time for a lot of people where they're taking initiative, they're doing something for themselves and not relying on doctors and multiple diagnoses and nothing ever kind of hitting the mark. And then the depression or the anxiety that comes with nobody gets it. And is it all in my head and all, you know, this is the first time for a lot of people where it's like, no, it's not all in your head. And there's something you could do right here, right now, just by being with it and by almost making friends with it a little bit. I mean, I don't want to understanding that it's a protective mechanism, right? That what your body is doing is trying to protect you and finding some sort of solace or maybe even a bit of gratitude for the body's healing capacity and survival instinct, right? And being kind to that area that's been driving you crazy forever. That alone can evoke tears. Just like the hand on your shoulder, right? That shoulder that's been
Yeah.
killing you forever. You realize you can actually soothe yourself. Like that's incredibly overpowering. You never knew you could do that, and it's so simple. And suddenly something opens, I think, for a lot of people, you know.
Started soothing myself. My daughter, my youngest, has always soothed herself. She doesn't suck her thumb or her fingers when she was a kid. She would take her lips and she'd put them on my hairy forearm, and I'm quite hairy, and she would just like barely let her lips touch the hair.
Mm.
And now, whenever I'm like, I'll sit there and I'll do this in the car, and I'm like, oh wow, that's a
There's
really
something to
unique one.
that.
And then the other one is in the movie The Da Vinci Code.
Mhm.
Ian McMillan is sitting in the car at one point and he chews his finger like this when he's stressed at the end when Tom Hanks and the lady who plays Audrey Tautou are getting off the airplane and
Yeah.
he sits there and so I'll sit there and I'll drive it when I'm stressed. I'll do those exact same positions. It's really interesting, the self-soothing stuff. Yeah.
Right,
But
right.
you talk about that that sense of connection, and it's interesting because when I first started massage, I came from energy work. I came from Reiki. I came from, esoteric thought process. I came from full blown meditation, guided hypnosis. I loved all that kind of stuff. And then I went heavy into the science and I completely threw that stuff out the window. And I went full down the science rabbit hole, the painscience.com page, Todd Hardgrove, the Better Clinician Project,
Mm.
all these heavy science, Andrew Lau, all these kinds of things like this. And not that they're wrong. They are incredibly intelligent people and incredibly smart. And I think some of them are slowly transitioning um, to that embodiment page, phase where the science is important. I do want to understand the mechanisms because the science lets me heal the masses,
Mm.
but it does nothing for the person in front of me. The connection is what lets me help the person in front of me, but the science is what helps me heal everybody, or helps me help, not heal, but helps me help everybody.
Mm.
Knowing that on average, I can help this many people, that we can reduce pain by these averages, those become important to help everybody, but it doesn't help the person in front of you. The person in front of you, it's about the connection with them. And when you talk about having read Paul Ingram's Pain Science blog and it destroyed you, I have a podcast where I talked about this with Michael Ham. We talk about going through a crisis of faith
Hmm.
in manual therapy, and I had my crisis of faith, and it came when I was reading Paul's stuff. And then I came back to really believing how massage works and understanding when I started creating my neuroscience class, because it helped explain and connect a lot more dots together and not just mechanical or structure biomedical model. But the more I do that, I just created this new series that I taught a few times this year, and I have a few contracts for next year called Creating Empathetic Touch. It's a series of classes. And that idea of creating empathetic touch, that idea of lightness, of softness being present, um, it really creates a sense of connection and safety. And it made me realize that the science is great. It's great to understand, that oscillation and vibration help fascia more than mechanical forces or stripping. Like you can't strip fascia, but you can do vibration and oscillation. It helps to know that eccentric loading is good for tendinopathy. It helps to know that, non-specific chronic low back pain heals on its own with or without intervention at certain rates. It helps to know all that kind of stuff. But really what helps is to sit there and look at somebody in the eyes and say, your pain's real. You're not making it up. Yes, I know other people haven't been able to help you, and I may not be able to, but at least we know it's real and we can try and we'll make an effort.
Mhm.
And that connection gives them that sense of safety and support and everything else we need. And I think that's such an important component. And I love that that's where you would mention that that's where you're transitioning in your practice with time. And I'm 20 years in and I'm finally figuring that out. And the more I speak to practitioners who've been in it a long time, the more they say the same thing. The
Yeah.
longer they're in the profession, the more they move to the connection base.
Yep. And interestingly, there's a good amount of science about connection, right? Because we know with empirical evidence that the most important aspect of so many, not just massage therapy, is not what happens, logistically in the treatment room, but the connection between patient, doctor, client, massage therapist, right? So we actually have that scientifically for
Pavel Goldstein has a great article on that he published last October, and he actually was on as a guest on one of my podcasts,
oh, okay.
and we talk about that. And he talks famously about having done a paper where he just held people's hands.
Oh, yes, yes, I
He did
did
a
listen
study
to
of the holding hands study
hmm
for pain management, just holding hands and the intent of empathy versus just detachment. And to me,
hmm
that's so impressive and amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that you gave us that paper to read before your class. I
yeah,
remember
yeah. That's right.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
I do remember.
Um, so with your YouTube page, it starts out as just purely mechanical. Here's how you treat these things, and it moves into the sense of connection and community.
Yeah.
What's the next step for you with that? Is it to keep going that way, or do you want to bring that community together? Because part of me wonders, like, I have all these people, and then I teach classes, and when they listen to my podcast, I go to the Canadian Massage Conference, or I go to AMTA National Convention, or I go to the American Massage Conference, and I see all these people, and they say, oh, I heard you on your podcast, and I meet my community. Do you find yourself going out there and meeting your community, or is it really just stays online for you?
So far, just online. I've flirted with, that's the word for today, flirting, I guess. I don't know. That's our key word today.
I like
With
it.
creating memberships. So where you can I think what is it, 2.99 a month. So if you pay 2.99 a month, you can join my membership. I'm not, a lot of people say, will make their YouTube video, this chunk of my library is for members only. I don't, everything's free to everybody. This is just for those people who have said, I have changed their lives. They use my videos every day. If you would like to help me out a little bit with all of the work and time and production and equipment and things that go into this, I'd love your help. And I also make those people my priority. I'll respond to them first. I will listen to take their requests most seriously in terms of, for future videos, things like that. That really did not go anywhere. I may have 7 or 8 members out of 100,000. I think that people who really push or make things only available to members, maybe, but this was never a money-making thing for me. So with that, if I were to say, I'm going to give this class and it costs a certain amount of money, I'm like, would anyone come? Or are these just people who are looking for, something um, accessible, free, that they don't have to work for? They could just click and do it in their living room and feel better. So I don't know. I kind of felt the waters with that a little bit. But also everyone's, I mean, you do a lot of traveling, but everyone's all over the place. And I think most people are not going to travel to, for a class with me. I am assuming. Especially because I haven't developed a teaching sort of career
And
aside from that.
your listeners are not primarily massage therapists. They're
No,
primarily the general population.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's and that's the part of the beauty is how easy and accessible and free. So many people say I don't have access to massage therapy for any number of reasons. You know, it's very expensive. It's not easy to find a really skilled, excellent massage therapist um,
Who you trust.
who you
Find
trust.
I find finding skilled therapists is actually quite easy. I finding
Mm,
trusting that
trusting
therapist is
her.
hard
Yeah,
for
yeah.
whatever reason, be it, they're male, female, be it that they're old, young, be it that they're educated, uneducated, be it that they're, coming in disheveled or dressed prop. Like it doesn't actually matter why we have a sense of trust. It matters that you have a sense of trust.
Of
And you
course.
can, I talk about it in my class. You can do everything in your I have a placebo class where I talk about put everything in your favor, put all the odds in your favor
Hmm.
to create that sense of trust. But you may have complete by dressing a specific way, thinking, okay, I'm going to create the most amount of trust possible. You may completely turn somebody off,
Hmm.
and you
Hmm.
can just do your best. But I think skilled therapy exists far and wide. Trusting a therapist is very unique.
Hmm. Hmm. And skilled, yes, but then also to have it malleable enough to be specific to you, right? So do they do that same evidence-based thing for everybody with this condition, or do they understand that that's not going to cut it for everybody? Um,
Exactly.
no, or they can listen. So there's just a lot of components that go into it, and then there's also the all the people who are just too nervous or self-conscious. I mean, it is an extremely vulnerable thing to take off your clothes and lie on a stranger's table and allow them to do what are you going to do to me, right? You do, and my first time with almost every client, even if they've been to massage therapists, that's always their body is just the most tense, the most jumpy. And their second session, if everything, if I've earned their trust, they're just out, like they just give themselves over. So even with that, and then you have a population of people who may have experienced some abuse or trauma. So self-massage may be the only way to go for them, or that feels safe, at least for now. So yeah, so I don't necessarily see myself developing the same audience you do, but also I do work full time as a massage therapist, and a mom and a
And
writer.
an author.
And so I'm not really sure where that would come into to play in my schedule at the moment. So
Yeah.
maybe it'll evolve into
I
something like that.
I think for me, one of the things that you do with your YouTube channel that is the most rewarding and selfless for me is the what you talked about, the accessibility. You know, internet is not accessible to everybody, but it's becoming a very common
Mhm.
accessibility. Here in Canada, they're passing laws that make it where internet it's not currently there, but they're debating the idea of making it one of the basic staples, like electricity, like running water, even though there are many indigenous cultures and regions that actually still don't have running water, which is a whole other problem. But they
Mhm.
are looking at making internet this like mandatory thing, and it opens up the healthcare. I just did a talk with Project Echo, which is a group that focuses on remote communities. It was with the University of New Mexico, and I talked about the effects of kinesiotaping in pain management. And their primary goal is to get these video recordings out to practitioners in remote communities who can't come and take a class, who can't do stuff like that.
Mhm.
And that video component of self-care to me becomes it's such a great resource. I know I have used your videos with some of my clients,
Mhm.
my low income clients who are like, look, I can't afford every session with you, can't come. I was like, look, we'll do what we can, we'll do a prorated scale, but if you still can't come see me, here's a resource, go watch those videos and do some of that self here. Because if nothing else, they're paying attention to self.
Mhm. Exactly.
We talked about the jar and allostasis in the class. And if nothing else, they're sitting there taking care of themselves, trying to understand their embodiment a little bit more. And how great is that? And how important is that? I love that. For me, that's probably the most important component of what you're offering because massage historically is one of those things that if you're not in a room with someone, you don't get.
Mhm.
And you have found a way to break that barrier. And I love that. I find that inspiring.
And it's good for people to know that they can do that, you know, like you can offer yourself a lot of relief without becoming a massage therapist, you know. It's a lot of it's not rocket science, you know, you can follow along. Not to undermine, but you know, still there's a lot you can do. And that's interesting you said
Massage therapy is
10 years.
not rocket science. I'll say it. I know
Uh,
you don't want to because you don't want to
okay,
offend
I didn't want
anybody,
to
but
offend
I'll say it.
anyone.
Massage therapy is not rocket science. It
I didn't want to
takes,
offend anyone.
I know you can risk breaking somebody's bones,
It's
but
yes, it's
you'd
difficult to do.
really have to push hard and
It's,
be really not paying attention.
yes.
The majority of massage therapy is incredibly high reward with almost no risk. It doesn't
Yes.
mean there's no risk, but no risk of physiological injury. It doesn't mean there's not risk of, crossing boundaries, ethical stuff, but
Right.
it's you don't need to be and I know I'm going to upset some people, and that's fine. Be upset with me. I don't care. It is not an incredibly skilled profession.
Yes. And that's
You
the
can make a
beauty of
mistake.
it is the high
Exactly.
reward, low risk. Yeah, that's the beauty.
You can make a mistake and they're not going to walk out destroyed.
Right.
Like, oh,
Exactly.
so you go a little deep and their muscle hurts for a few extra hours, or
Right.
you don't go deep enough and they don't get the recovery, or you spend too long on one tissue. Like,
Mhm.
it's not the end. It's not that it's not important to know and have the nuance, but it doesn't. Yeah, it's not like you're sitting there breaking somebody's bones or cutting them open and things like that.
No, admittedly, there have been times on the table I'll be working on, you know, somebody's knee and I'll be like, "How is that? Is that sort of where you were feeling it?" And they say, "Oh, it's the other knee." And I said, "And that's why I'm not a surgeon."
Exactly, right?
Now I know I
Exactly.
went into the right profession.
For me it's when they roll over.
Right, and
I
everything's
I don't change sides of the table and they roll over and I'm like, yeah, I'm still treating the correct side of the body. I'm like, I forgot I have to go to the side of the table too now that they've turned over. Yeah, that one's a big one for me.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you for sending it to your clients. I'm very flattered and I appreciate that. That's actually why I started the YouTube channel. I did not say I'm off to get 100,000 subscribers and I'm gonna, you know, make this my full-time job and become famous on the internet. That's not, which a lot of people do today. But no, 10 years ago, I had read that a lot of people are starting to prefer video over reading, and I was sending a monthly newsletter that I've been doing for 15 years, I think. So I thought, oh, well, I'll do a little bit of writing and include a video in my thing. And then I realized, oh, this is great because I'm always giving something to my clients to do in between sessions, whether they do or not. I feel like it's a, you know, here's your goodie bag from the session and to carry you over and to help you remember, you know, take a little time for yourself. And a lot of times it's a bit of a self massage or it's a stretch, something to make whatever was bothering them feel a little better during the time in between or extend the benefits. And then they come back and I'd say, how'd that work out for you? And they say, I completely forgot what you said. So now I have video and I thought this is great. And that's all it was for. It was for the clients that I saw. And I would think of what do I give out the most and start filming those and I would send it to them. And so I had never expected it to go there, but it's a really great resource to have because every time I see somebody, I'm like, oh, I've got a video for you. I think you're really gonna like it, you know? So it does help out a lot. And I love that. I have to say, I'm a little jealous. I love that Canada is moving forward with the internet. I immediately was like, oh God, we're so moving backwards here. And I think
Yeah,
that's
I don't
also
know if today's the best day to talk about all that.
no, but it's relevant because I think today more than ever people are looking for that connection. You know, it's everything is getting so divided and we're trying to find a way to bring it back. And with all of the anxiety and the unknown, and I'm talking about it because it's affecting every client that I'm seeing, a
Absolutely.
very direct way, a very
I mean, I
direct
live
way.
in Canada and it affects I mean, I'd
Yeah,
say out of 10 sessions, 9 of them we talk about global unrest at the moment.
yeah, yeah. So they're coming to me with increased pain, increased anxiety, and things like that. And I think more people are going online looking up what do I do here? I'm lost, right? So it's channels like mine and people who reach out and things like that bring people together that say we're in the same boat and let's heal together because that's all in when we have or feel we have no control and there are outside events just beyond what we can handle, cope with, do anything about, we always can control our response. It's not easy, it's a practice, but we can always do something to help ourselves be able to live it better. Um, I just heard this great line from priest of all people. I actually last week was a bad week. There were two deaths in my family, and one of them involved a mass. And I was brought up Jewish, and now I really don't have much religion that I practice at all. But the priest said a person reaches full maturity when there's nothing else but to say, "How can I help? How can I be of service?" You know?
That's pretty beautiful.
And right? And I was like, whoa, I didn't know I'd be getting a whoo today, And it's so true. And if we can get ourselves into that space, if we can mature together and then say, how can we help each other? Because we can't help each other until we help ourselves. I really, really believe that. And this is one way to start doing that and bringing people back together and connecting and just being a real on a human level, not events that you read, but like real human connection. And I think that that's where the importance of my channel has become more of a realization in recent times. Also, because one of those deaths was my mother-in-law, who was the most kind, friendly, outgoing. She was a teacher. I mean, she made friends with the person riding the elevator with her, the person next to her on the train, the person bagging her groceries, not just saying, "Hey, how are you?" But she'd come to me. Oh, I just met Denise on the subway. She has three kids. One just graduated from this school. And can you believe we were at the same science fair 7 years ago with my student? It was such an event. This is the kind of woman she was. And I'm like, we need more of these people. And
Yeah,
her legacy, it's something that I want to be. So that's how this YouTube channel went from here's a technique for plantar fasciitis to let's do this. Let's get
let's connect.
together and do this. Let's make something better. Let's make ourselves
That's
better so we
beautiful.
can make the collective better.
I love that. I find that beautiful. I really do. I think that's such a good, and it's such a good way to bring a larger community together, but it's also such a good way to keep a community that's local together as well. I think
Yeah.
that's really great.
Yeah.
Wow.
And what you said
Wow.
resonated with me when I interviewed you for my YouTube channel, which if you check out my YouTube channel, that'll be coming out soon. And when I said, can you sum up, everything we talked about? And one of the biggest things you said was connection. If you don't have touch, in person, it's connection, even if it's online, and how important that is. And we were talking about chronic pain. So even for physical sensations in the body, that connection is so important. And I was like, yes. Yeah.
I did a new class and part of my creating empathetic touch series called Touch is a Communication Tool.
Mhm.
And I'm actually about to write an article about it and put it in my newsletter. So that'll be coming out relatively soon. Um, and one of the things that when I was teaching this class and researching and putting it together was the C tactile afferent fiber pathways, which are these specific sensory cells that live inside our dermis that are hyper or stimulated, and not isolated, but more stimulated when our pressure is super light. So, like in class, when we do with our pressure scales, so under 35 grams of pressure, but also when the speed of touch is anywhere from 1 to 10 centimeters per second. And I didn't know this when I taught the class in October with you guys. This information I hadn't come across it yet. So now I've updated my course to include this material because I did teach slow touch going, okay, this feels good as part of my ASMR classes and stuff like that. But now there's concrete science showing us why it feels good and which pathways are highlighted. And for me, I realized that I think now the more I reflect on those C afferent pathways, I realize that first touch in sessions becomes really essential to that holding and that slow touch. But even in daily life, so like when my daughters come into my arms, when my wife comes into my arms, when I greet my friends. This morning, I met a random friend at a cafe who I haven't seen in a few years. And we hugged. And when I hugged him, instead of like hugging him, giving him this strong hug, I hugged him and my hands like really moved slowly down his spine. And I realized I've started integrating that really slow sense of touch into almost every component. And, even like self caressing, it's
Mm.
not quite the same, but slow touch. Um, for me, it really creates that sense of connection. And it's become part of my daily life almost. It's something that I try to integrate.
Yeah, it's part of the literally slowing down because feeling a slow movement gets you, it's the rushing that makes us miss each other, I think. Oh, I will get together when we can get together because I have this on my to-do list and on my agenda and then, life passes you by and you haven't spent that quality time with this person that you love, which is really what's more important than that. So I love that slowing down sense of it. I think what was I just listening to? Oh, it was more morning meditation. I meditate for 10 to 12 minutes every morning, or I try to. Um, and they were talking about how it's the body that gets you into the present moment, which we all know, but it's still so fascinating because our minds are always rushing ahead or reminiscing about the past and fretting over things. And the best and easiest way to get into the present moment is with the body. And that's what gets you to slow
Yeah.
down because the body's always in the present moment. It's always taking care of things without you knowing. It's one of your people that you interviewed talked about the body as your subconscious, like literally as your
Yeah.
subconscious, which I just think,
Yeah. Brian Troskas talked
yes,
about
yes,
that.
yes. Yeah. So that's
So,
such an easy
so
connection
then
to the present.
my last question for you would be, of all the people you've met online who have listened to your videos and connected with you, um, are there any stories that stand out? I mean, you mentioned this lady who had, this person, sorry, not lady, this person who had migraines, who they went away, the person shoulder people. Is there anyone who, like, from afar, who has stood out as, wow, that was effective and it helped them, and I never even saw them and I never even touched them? How awesome is that kind of experience?
It's amazing. And a lot of them will say, and greetings from Switzerland and Germany and Finland, like, all over the world. Like I was like, oh wow, I just helped somebody's tennis elbow and, you know, uh it's really, really gratifying. I think that's the most gratifying thing and one of the things that makes me want to keep doing it because it actually can be filming videos is very lonely. There's no one in front of you. You put it out there and you don't know what happens. So it's the people that take the time to say things like that that really I don't know if they know how meaningful it is. I always try to thank them and tell them how much because it's so easy for us, I think, to complain about things online when things go wrong, and when it works, it's good. That's, that it worked is what I expected, but you don't say anything. So the people who take the time to appreciate that and reach out, I don't think they realize how much that helps the people who put out the content to because that's all we know. That's all we know is from what we get back. So hearing things like that is really amazing. And then there are the people who add to it and say, "Oh, and also what I discovered was," or, "I did this in combination and I added this," or, um, "I knew that this helped my headache, but what I didn't know was it also helped with XYZ," and so it gets you thinking like, "Oh, and maybe I'll do a video to lean into that a little bit more," so, and giving you ideas for different things that you didn't know. I didn't know this little massage would be something like that, or had the potential to have that kind of power or healing. So it's the comments are fantastic. Yeah.
I like what you're saying because I think, it goes to that component of community, but also loneliness. As massage therapists, as acupuncturists, osteos, physios, unless you're working in a clinic with multiple people, chiros, all these manual therapy disciplines, you're very much alone usually. It's you in a room with a client or a patient. And then it's you alone in a room with your next client or patient. And then maybe you have a quick lunch together, but maybe your schedule doesn't line up with if you work in a clinic with several practitioners, maybe your schedule doesn't line up. So you're eating on your own. And then, your hours are usually different if you're self-employed, and your time off is usually alone because your other friends are working or your partner has a job.
Mhm.
And then when you're content creating, you're on your own. When I do my podcast, I'm editing, I'm on my own. When I do my newsletter, I'm on my own. And then, when I teach, you're not on your own, you're with students, but it's very much you're alone as the authority figure. And then other people are, they look. And so I talk to my wife about this often as like, as a sole proprietor, massage therapy practitioner, and content creator educator, it is a very lonely profession to do that. And so going to things like conventions, having this sense of community where people communicate back to you, I really enjoyed this, it helped. That sense of community really suddenly makes a difference and has a more powerful impact than, my wife, who she works at home, but when she does go to the office, she's got a community, and all day long she's writing other people and she's talking to people who are part of her community, and they're building to a project together. Yeah, that sense of community and loneliness in our profession, I think, is pretty big. And so I love that what you're bringing is a sense of community that's also global by nature.
Yeah, it's very personal too because I spent so much of my life isolated, and that means that I lost a lot of friends along the way. I didn't make a lot of friends that I could have made. There was tons of social anxiety. I feel like I started growing up I mean, I was sick for a very long time. I feel like I started growing up maybe in my mid to late 20s. Like I was, oh, what does an adult do? Because I don't know. I just missed my growing up, you know. So, so the fact then that I went into, yes, a touch healing connection kind of career, but I'm a private practitioner. I work alone. And it is very, very isolating. And I don't have that community that I could have grown throughout my life. So, so that it's even more meaningful to me to get things like that and to create that, like my mother-in-law, that conversation with the people that you see every day, even if they aren't your best friends, it makes a difference. It impacts you. It changes your mood. It changes the tone. It changes the course of your day. It brings you out of yourself. And so that's become very important to me. And I think that's something that even people with a lot of friends could usually use more of because just the nature of our active, busy lives it gets very isolating. So
Yeah.
just reaching out to somebody. So it's a personal agenda as well as a wanting to. But and that's how so many people come into the healing profession. Like you said, we have our own experience and then we find something that's helpful and we want to share that as much as possible with other people who feel the same way.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Of course, thank
I,
you.
I really I want to thank you for two reasons. One, for joining my podcast. I'm always appreciative of people who want to give their time and spend time with me talking about what they're passionate about. But two, I want to give a specific shout out and thank you to doing something that is unique in our profession, in that you are creating massage therapy for the masses who can afford and can access good manual therapy. And that is a unique thing that you're doing. I haven't seen a lot of people do this. I haven't come across a lot of other pages. Maybe one of the only other ones I've seen is Massage Therapy Media, but even there, it's a paid format, even though they do have a free format as well. And it's primarily more for massage therapists, not necessarily for the general population, although there is some stuff there for that. And so I think what you're doing is very unique. I think it's special. And I think it has a bigger, profound impact than, when you do get thanks yous, you probably feel it, like you mentioned. But I think your impact is probably bigger than you think. Only in that not everybody is saying thank you, but everybody's, the people who are watching. And so you're doing something that I think a lot of other massage therapists wish and want they could do. I know I filmed a lot of videos in the hope to put them on YouTube, and I absolutely haven't. I know I have an entire library of videos of stuff like that I haven't done, and I probably won't, to be honest. So you're already doing something that other people have thought about and inspired to do, but you've actually done it. And what you're doing is giving people an understanding and an introduction into manual therapy in a way that they may never have had, let alone the relief that comes with it and the community. So I want to say thank you for that reason specifically, because to me, that is a unique thing you're doing that promotes our profession, helps our profession, but primarily helps people embodiment and with their pain and discomfort. And being who I am, there's no greater gift that you can give somebody than helping them understand their body and their pain more.
Oh,
So
thank
thank
you
you.
so much. Yeah, that really does mean the world to me. And I was thinking how unique what you offer is while you said that, because I have an impossible time finding classes that I want to take. I'm done with modalities, I'm done with techniques. I'm done. And like you said, so many people later in their massage careers are just looking for, and so when I saw a class called How Massage Works, I'm like, thank you, something other than the do this, and pay a lot of money to take my whole modality course. And, the
Yeah.
modality empires, as Paul Ingram calls them, I think. And I wish there were more continuing education classes like you offer, because it's transformative in a way nothing else I've taken is. Like and it's changed the way I think. It's changed the way I work. Like, yes, I'm oscillating and vibrating a whole lot, but it's also made the my connection with my clients so much deeper. And I'm always looking for more classes like that, and it's so hard to find. So thank you so much for what you do, and for this amazing podcast, which I really enjoy so much and always learn something from.
Well, thank you. Is there anything you'd like to promote? Do you want to talk about anything else coming up for you with your book or anything like that, or where they can get access to it before we sign off?
Sure, it's on Amazon. The name of the book is Hungry for Life. It really was written for uh, parents, caregivers, people who just don't get it, because it's really, really hard to understand an eating disorder. It's told from my point of view, very unreliable narrator, but you get to experience what I was going through. So maybe you can understand more. And, like you said, with daughters, especially if you have kids and you want to just be able to recognize any red flags, I think that's helpful. So that's on Amazon. If you like psychological suspense, that book is there. Glass Half Broken, which also definitely has aspects of me and my family and my experiences, I guess, like all do. Rachel Richards Massage is my YouTube channel. Feel free to check it out. There's over 200 videos there now. And I'm happy to answer any questions or talk to anybody. My what is it? My email address is rachelrichardsmassage@gmail.com. I'm like, what's it called again? Email address. Oh, I told you last week was a long week, two funerals.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
trying to get
brutal.
back in the so
That's brutal.
rachelrichardsmassage@gmail.com. And yes, I'm happy to talk to anybody. My website is rachel-richards.com, which I really need to uh, it needs an overhaul, because it still has a lot of old beliefs that I had when I made the website, and a lot of it is not true anymore. So it's finding a way to make it um, optimized for search engines without saying massage increases circulation or things like that. So please forgive
I
anything
have
you
the same,
read,
yeah, I
right?
have the same problem.
Please forgive me. I'm working on it. But
Yeah, I have the same problem. My website has the correct information that I'm aware of, but it means it doesn't get a lot of search optimization.
yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel.
All right. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.